Well, good morning, gentlemen. It is wonderful to be on with you. I have some water running right now. I'm making my grandson a bottle.
Oh, nice.
That way, maybe he's not too noisy in the background for us.
Oh, no, not at all. That's great. I love that. Well, we know you had a very busy weekend. House passed a $95 billion package providing foreign aid for Ukraine, Israel, and Indo-Pacific region. You were a no vote on many of these bills, I think all of them. Can you give us your reasoning for your no votes on those bills?
Yes. Well, here's the thing. I spent weeks and hours with my colleagues from different factions of the Republican Party and the Speaker of the House trying to get to a solid, reasonable path forward. Now, we passed Israel aid funding months ago that was paid for. We said, hey, remember those 87,000 IRS agents that you want to spend $86 billion in tax funds to hire? They're going to be armed. They're required to use deadly force if necessary. To me, that's armed robbery, so taxation is theft. Well, we're going to defund some of them, and we're going to pay for Israel aid through that instead of borrowing it through from China. Well, we were coming up with all sorts of negotiations that were a little less political. Let's find a very reasonable pay for, so we aren't borrowing this money from China, so this isn't deficit spending, and let's put some sort of a clean Israel aid package on the floor, have an amendment to pay for it, and let the chips fall where they may. Israel's been attacked. We need to help them. And unfortunately, our speaker could not get away from funding Ukraine. Everything was tied to Ukraine except for our southern border. And in every aspect of these negotiations, I found myself agreeing with my most moderate and liberal Republican colleagues that we can find a path forward to both have legislation that secures our southern border, takes care of our nation's closest ally, Israel, and you get very limited Ukraine funding. We get humanitarian or lethal aid only to Ukraine, get them bullets rather than American bodies. And after we came to an agreement, after weeks and then hours and hours in meetings, we woke up to find that Mike Johnson went back to this horrible deal that had nothing for the border.
Yeah, why do you think that happened? In the past, he hadn't been supporting funding to Ukraine, had voted specifically against it, and now seems to come out very hawkish. What do you think happened to Speaker Mike Johnson, and what do you think of his leadership of the House?
The leadership that I've seen out of the speaker, unfortunately, is very pitiful at this point. I've never been more disappointed in any of my fellow colleagues in Washington, D.C. And I mean, that is saying a lot because there's disappointment that happens just about every day. And this has been, as Jim Banks of Indiana would say, the biggest flip-flop that any of us have ever seen in politics. He has not said since February 28th. February 28th was the last time that he said anything about our southern border being the number one priority, the hill to die on. Nothing passes without border security connected to it. February 8th was the last time he made any statement like that. And unfortunately, he resigned himself to the fact that Ukraine funding is most important. And I would think that the waving of the Ukrainian flags on the United States House of Representatives chamber floor with the speaker taking several minutes to even address it shows that Ukraine is his number one priority rather than our own priority. Look, you had Senator Barbara Kirkmeyer on earlier today, and she's talking about the crises that are created right here in Colorado by the illegal aliens that are coming into our country. And there is absolutely nothing to slow down the surge or to end that invasion or to secure our southern border in this near $100 billion that was spent.
Talking with Lauren Boebert, representative from Congressional District 3. She's running for Congressional District 4 now. Now, Ken Buck went on CNN, who occupied the seat that you're running for, which is the eastern part of Colorado, and basically said that the Marjorie Taylor Greene, he called her Moscow Marjorie, is playing into the hands of Russia. What's your response to those lawmakers that say by not supporting funding to Ukraine, you're actually supporting Russia?
Well, I mean, I don't think anybody's taking much note of what Ken Buck is saying nowadays. I would be beware of what he does in the future with friends like Kent Theory and trying to create jungle primaries in Colorado. But this is not our problem. We have sent over $110 billion to Ukraine. There is no strategy. There is no plan. We don't know where this money has gone. And we're just continuing to send money. $61 billion was just approved through the House of Representatives, and not a dime is going to our own southern border, where we do have an existential crisis. We've had some almost 10 million illegal aliens come into our country in less than 4 years. Bill, this is a problem that needs to be addressed. And I'm tired of people saying that the only way to address it is having President Trump back in office. Of course, he's going to do something about it because he's going to be forced to. There's nothing that we're doing to force the Senate's hand and put pressure on them. We've sent just a couple of border bills over there. I think we should be sending them every day that we are in session. Look, you guys want to do something? Well, we've sent you 50 border bills. Go ahead and take one of those up and pass it, and let's get some actual security here. You want funding for Ukraine? Well, we want to have some sort of measurable mechanism in place to prove that the surge is slowing down at our southern border. We want Remain in Mexico. We want to end catch and release, bring back Title 42. And that's just not COVID related. There's all sorts of communicable diseases that come through our southern border. And so there's so many things that we can be doing. And instead, the only thing we've done is hire more agents at the border that are just there to process aliens in quicker and parole them into the country.
Lauren Boebert joining Jeff and Bill this morning. She's candidate for CD4. Want to bring you into a conversation that Jeff and I had a little bit earlier this morning and get your reaction to it. One of the questions I have is, inside the GOP, is it a legacy of Reagan or a legacy of Trump? And what I mean by that is, Reagan is the Mikhail Gorbachev, tear down this wall. Russia is the evil empire. Trump seems to be on the side of being more amenable to Russia. And in fact, in NATO with some of our allies, says if they aren't paid up, he would actually let Russia do whatever the hell they want to our allies. What's your feeling on that? And what camp do you feel you're more in? The traditional Reagan approach to foreign policy or the Trump approach to foreign policy?
Well, Bill, with some of the comments aside, I think it's easy to say that I'm very much a Trump Republican, and I'm not looking for zombie Reagan to come and save America. Under Reagan, look at the mass amnesty that we had. Under President Trump, we had peace through his strength. And that is real leadership. We didn't have these wars that we are funding both sides of. We weren't the world's police and sending money and keeping these wars going on when he was in office. Our enemies feared our leader because they knew that he would actually take action that mattered. And I think Afghanistan was the clear do whatever you want in the Biden administration, that horrific surrender to the Taliban. And here's my position, Bill. If Ukraine needs ammunition, munitions, weapons, whatever they need, well, how about you go get the $86 billion worth of military equipment that was left behind in Afghanistan? If you need it that bad, there's $86 billion of it left over there that was completely abandoned. And so why are we, the American people, our tax dollars, required to fund both sides of these wars? We're still purchasing energy from Russia. We are funding Ukraine endlessly. Zelensky shows up in a sweatshirt and picks up a check. He sends a tweet and gets a check, whatever it may be. And then even in our Israel aid package, there was $9 billion that went to Gaza. Who controls Gaza? Hamas. It is absolutely disgusting how we are packaging this foreign aid that we are voting on here. It doesn't make sense. It's not conservative. It's not even part of the Republican Party platform. So I am a Trump Republican. And if President Trump is saying, they could do whatever the hell they want if nobody's paid up, I think it's because his strength alone would stop them from doing whatever the hell they want, because they know that there would be retaliation.
Yeah, I think in that case, if you've ever read The Art of the Deal, he's trying to get Europe to step up to the game. The idea that it's always America's job to step in and police. And we're talking with Representative Lauren Boebert of Colorado Congressional District 3, candidate in Colorado Congressional District 4. We had a caller on just before you, Representative Boebert, that said, it is America's job to be out there and to police this world so that we can do the trade that we need to. And I just said, oh, really? So did you support the war in Iraq? No. Did you support Vietnam? No. I mean, I understand that the left is out there arguing that we need to get into Ukraine, but in the past, they haven't had this role. They haven't had this viewpoint. And look, I've changed my position on this. I was very supportive of George W. Bush going into Afghanistan and Iraq and taking on radical Islamists and the threat to this world that they were. And now that I sit back 25 years removed from that, lost friends in those wars, spent billions of dollars in those wars, and within 3 days of leaving Afghanistan, they kicked the little girls out of the schools and were in Afghanistan, essentially right back where it was. I'm tired of it. I'm tired of the money being spent. I'm tired of the lives being spent. And I understand there's threats in this world to face. But my goodness, with all the problems that this country's facing, watching them send billions of dollars to Ukraine and wave the little flags out there. I mean, when you were on the floor, Representative Lauren Boebert, when those flags came out, what was your feeling when you saw the Ukrainian flags being waved on the floor of the House of Representatives this past weekend?
Well, Jeff, I said some not very pretty words on the House floor, and I confronted many of my Democrat colleagues and demanded that they put the flags away. And their response was, this is our national security priority. And I mean, Jeff, that enraged me. Our country is our national security priority, our southern border, our people. The House just passed FISA that allows warrantless spying on American citizens, and Republicans voted alongside of that to go on with that and used fear as a leverage point to sell Americans' rights, to give up the Fourth Amendment right to privacy. And now we have Democrats boldly, Jason Crow on the House floor, waving the Ukrainian flag. Here's the deal. You love Ukraine that much? Then get your ass over there and serve. Go over there and enlist in their army. If this is how you feel about Ukraine and you're going to put America last every single day, leave here and go there and do your part to support them if that is your priority. America is my priority, and I am fighting to put her first each and every day, and that includes in our spending. We are almost $35 trillion in debt with no end in sight to the spending. And I'm tired of Republicans getting in the majority and thinking that new debt is okay because it's Republican debt. This is absolutely mind-blowing. We were less than $30 trillion in debt when I took office. And maybe by the time I leave office, we'll be at 40 trillion. It is unfathomable that we are putting this on our children and our children's children. It is immoral, it is unsustainable, and it's unacceptable. And each and every day, I am fighting to get our spending under control, going through to fight for individual appropriations bills and go line by line through that programmatic spending and get rid of the wasteful programs, departments, or even positions, bringing back the Holman rule so we can target bureaucrats who are abusing their position individually and say, okay, you want to play games with your position and the American people and abuse the separation of powers and try to make laws through your agency? Well, then we're going to reduce your salary personally down to $1. And everything that I'm doing, I am focused on the spending and the debt of our nation and trying to get that back under control. And even this spending package, just to go back to this near $100 billion in foreign aid that was just passed out of the House this week, it had the illusion of individual bills, of single subject bills. It was a complete lie. This had a predetermined outcome. And the way it was set up was we would have a cosmetic border bill that everyone, including the speaker, knew would fail, and it did. And then we would have the we would have the Taiwan bill, we would have the Ukraine bill, we would have the Israel bill, and then even the TikTok bill. And then at the end, they have a process that's called MIRV, MRIV, and it's a nuclear warhead term, where it starts as one, and then it kind of mushrooms out, and then it comes back together at the end. So this MIRV process takes all of the bills that passed on the House floor last week and puts them into one package to send over to the Senate. An illusion of single subject legislation, a total lie by the Speaker of the House that had no border security ever intended to pass along with it. It's absolutely shameful that this is happening in a Republican majority in the House, and that we aren't using the power of the purse, the power of our pen and our gavels to actually put pressure on Chuck Schumer and force action for our country's priorities. Instead of doing what's right, leadership has done exactly what Chuck Schumer and Joe Biden want. And this is the stuff that people hate about politicians and Washington, D.C. altogether. And, you know, I'm proud to be one of the few that will actually stand up to leadership and expose exactly what's going on and always do what's right when it comes to voting rather than doing what slimy politicians want.
Talking to Representative Lauren Boebert, represents Colorado Congressional District 3, running for Colorado Congressional District 4. Would you support a move to vacate Mike Johnson from the leadership seat, and would you be willing to take over the role as leadership as Speaker of the House in Congress?
First of all, I don't know where this Lauren Boebert Speaker of the House stuff came up.
I saw it online. That's why I asked you. Yeah, it comes from Matt Gaetz.
No. Well, you know, here's the deal. I in Washington, D.C., I would make a great leader, but in that town, I don't have many followers, so I don't think it's going to happen. But here, I do not support a motion to vacate. I have been very public about that. The speaker got me pretty close when he threatened to change the threshold from a one-member motion to vacate to extending that to more membership. I don't know what his number would have been, but I had a conversation with him and told him that this was my red line, and if he wanted a motion to vacate, the quickest way would be to increase the threshold. And he did immediately go out and make public statements against that. So I do not support a motion to vacate. I do believe that would leave us with a Speaker Hakeem Jeffries. And, you know, I have flippantly said, and maybe others have even said, what's the difference? It seems that we have Speaker Hakeem Jeffries already. The legislation that we've passed under Speaker Mike Johnson has more often had more Democrat support than it has Republican support. We have passed many Democrat bills that are sponsored by Democrats on suspension out of the House, and a lot of our House rules have been broken even. However, there is a difference. If we have a legitimate Speaker Hakeem Jeffries, we lose our gavels in committees immediately. They will go to impeachment on President Trump again. They will issue their subpoenas. These folks do not hold back where Republicans do. And they would have that supermajority again and be able to ram through all of the radical bills in the last few months of Joe Biden's presidency that they possibly could. So I do not support a motion to vacate. It is very, very dangerous to give Hakeem Jeffries the gavel. And I do believe that there are many of my colleagues, I say many, 3 to 5 of my colleagues who would vote for Hakeem Jeffries, who are Republican, or just flat out resign, leaving us in the minority.
Representative Lauren Boebert, super grandma, taking care of her grandchildren and answering questions about her vote over the weekend. Thank you so very much for coming on the Jeff and Bill show,
thanks.
Sharing your reasoning behind your vote. And look, Lauren, I posted your position on my Twitter account, and I would say a vast majority of the people agreed with your vote and appreciate you standing for America first. So thank you for being on the Jeff and Bill program.
Well, I certainly appreciate you guys having me. There's always more wonky details involved in all of this, but the basis is we're putting America first.
Jeff and Bill, weekday mornings from 6 to 10 on News Talk 710 KNUS.